The stars above Seoul burned brighter than usual that night. Daeho stood on a mountain ridge, looking through his rifle scope at the city below. He had been a sniper for 12 years, but nothing in his training prepared him for what descended from the sky. The ships came without warning. Massive vessels that blotted out the moon, their hulls covered in strange symbols that glowed with purple light. Smaller craft detached from the motherships like insects swarming from a hive. They descended toward the city, and Daeho watched the first plasma bolts strike the downtown buildings. His radio crackled to life. It was his commanding officer, Major Kim, his voice tight with fear. "All units, we are under attack. Hostile forces of unknown origin. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Daeho had always imagined war would come from another country. He never thought it would come from space. Through his scope, he watched the alien soldiers pour out of their landing craft. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with scaled skin that reflected the city lights. They moved in formation, disciplined and confident. They carried weapons that hummed with energy, and when they fired, entire buildings exploded. The Korean military responded quickly. Tanks rolled through the streets. Fighter jets screamed overhead. Soldiers took positions behind concrete barriers. But the alien weapons cut through metal like paper. The jets fell from the sky in flames. The tanks exploded before they could fire a second shot. Daeho watched it all from his position 3 kilometers away. His hands were steady as he adjusted his scope. He had spent his entire life in these mountains. His grandfather had been a soldier too, in older wars, and had taught him every ridge, every valley, every hidden path. This was his home, and these invaders had made their first mistake by choosing it as their battlefield. He selected his first target carefully. An alien who stood taller than the others, barking orders that his soldiers obeyed instantly. A commander, Daeho thought. The range was extreme, over 2,000 meters, but the wind was calm. He calculated the drop, adjusted for the slight humidity in the air, and exhaled slowly. The rifle kicked against his shoulder. Through the scope, he saw the alien commander's head snap back. The creature fell, and for a moment, the soldiers around him froze in confusion. Then chaos erupted among them. They scattered, looking for the threat, their weapons pointing in every direction except the right one. Daeho was already moving. He had learned long ago that a sniper who stays in one place is a dead sniper. He climbed higher up the mountain, to a position he had scouted months ago during training exercises. From there, he could see a different section of the city where more alien forces were landing. His phone buzzed. A text message from his sister Baora, who worked in military intelligence at the command center. All networks compromised. Aliens jamming everything. Using old frequency. Stay alive, brother. He smiled grimly. Baora was always thinking ahead. While everyone else panicked, she was already adapting. He switched his radio to the old military frequency she mentioned, one that used technology so outdated the aliens probably didn't even recognize it. Over the next 6 hours, Daeho fired 17 more shots. Each one carefully aimed, each one finding its target. He focused on the aliens who gave orders, who carried different equipment, who seemed important. He was not trying to win the war alone. He was trying to create confusion, to slow them down, to make them afraid by dawn. The aliens controlled most of downtown Seoul. The human forces had retreated to defensive positions outside the city. Thousands were dead. The news channels, though still broadcasting, showed scenes of destruction that looked like something from a nightmare. The aliens had sent a message in broken Korean, demanding Earth's immediate surrender. But something strange was happening in the alien ranks. Daeho monitored their radio chatter through equipment Baora had helped him acquire years ago. The translations were rough, but he understood enough. The aliens were arguing. Some of their officers were missing. Others were dead from impossible distances. They had expected an easy victory, but now they were confused and angry. Commander Vexter, the leader of the invasion force, stood in his command post and stared at the reports. 70,000 soldiers, the best the Galactic Assembly could offer, equipped with weapons far beyond human technology. Yet 18 of his officers were dead, killed by an enemy they never saw. The primitive humans were supposed to surrender within hours. Instead, they were fighting back in ways his intelligence reports never predicted. Deho settled into a cave he had stocked with supplies months ago. He cleaned his rifle, ate a cold meal, and tried not to think about his parents in the city below. He had to trust that they had evacuated in time. He had to focus on the mission. He was just one man with one rifle, but he was fighting on his own ground. The aliens had technology in numbers, but they did not understand this land. They did not know these mountains. They did not know the human capacity for stubbornness. As the sun rose over the devastated city, Deho looked through his scope again. The aliens were regrouping, bringing in reinforcements, establishing new command posts. He selected his next target and began his calculations. The war had just started, and he had a lot of work to do. 3 weeks had passed since the invasion began. The aliens controlled Seoul and had expanded their territory along the coast. Their forces moved in massive columns, crushing any resistance with overwhelming firepower. But in the mountains north of the city, they died one by one. The aliens had started calling him the Mountain Ghost. They could not see him. They could not find him. But every day, more of their officers fell with single bullet wounds from impossible distances. Commander Vexter had lost 43 officers now, and his army was becoming paralyzed with fear. Deho moved through the forest like water flowing downhill. He knew every tree, every rock formation, every hidden trail. During the day, he slept in caves or abandoned buildings. At night, he hunted. His rifle had become an extension of his body. He could disassemble and reassemble it in complete darkness. He knew exactly how it would perform at any distance. In any weather, his sister Bora had become his lifeline to the outside world. She worked 18-hour days at the military command center, analyzing alien movements and communications. She had discovered something important. The aliens operated on strict schedules. They rotated their command staff every 6 hours, always at the same times. They established communication posts in the same types of locations. They were advanced, but they were also predictable. She sent him encrypted messages through a network of dead drops. A message hidden under a rock near the old temple. Instructions written in code on a piece of paper left in a destroyed cafe. She told him where the aliens would be, when they would be vulnerable, and what targets would hurt them most. Deho used this information to strike with precision. He eliminated a communication specialist who was coordinating air support, and for 6 hours the alien air patrols flew in random patterns, achieving nothing. He killed a logistics officer who was managing supply lines, and an entire battalion ran short on ammunition. Each shot created ripples of chaos that spread through the alien army. The aliens sent patrols into the mountains to find him. The Viho watched them stumble through the terrain, making noise like children playing in a forest. He could have killed them easily, but he did not waste ammunition on ordinary soldiers. He waited for them to give up and leave. Then he moved to a new position and resumed his hunt. On the 24th day, something changed. Deho was observing an alien command post through his scope when he noticed different soldiers arriving. They moved differently from the regular troops. Their equipment was lighter, their movements more fluid. They did not bunch together or follow predictable patterns. These were hunters, not regular soldiers. Bora's next message confirmed his suspicions. Elite tracking team arrived yesterday. led by someone named Corvin. Different species, known for hunting dangerous prey. "Be careful, brother." Deho smiled. Finally, a challenge. He studied the new arrivals for 2 days, learning their patterns. Corvin was smart. He did not follow the same rigid schedules as the other aliens. He moved at random times, changed his routes constantly, and kept his team spread out. But everyone makes mistakes eventually. On the 3rd day, Deho noticed that Corvin always positioned one soldier on high ground to watch for threats. Always the same soldier, a creature with 4 arms and multiple eyes. This soldier was good, but he had a habit. Every 20 minutes, he would scan from left to right, then look down to check his equipment. 20 seconds of vulnerability. Deho waited for the right moment. The wind was calm. The range was 1,800 meters. He controlled his breathing and squeezed the trigger during the soldier's equipment check. The shot was perfect. The 4-armed alien dropped without making a sound. Corvin's team immediately went into defensive positions. They were professionals, reacting instantly to the threat. But they made one assumption that cost them. They assumed the shooter was close. They scanned the nearby buildings and ridge lines. They never looked far enough. Deho had already moved. He circled around their position, taking a path through a narrow ravine that his grandfather had shown him as a child. It took him 2 hours to reach a position behind the alien team. From there, he waited until darkness fell. The aliens had set up in a defensive perimeter, watching all approaches. But Deho did not approach. He found a position 800 meters away and settled in. Through his night vision scope, he watched Corvin and his remaining team members. They were nervous now, talking in urgent voices, constantly checking their surroundings. Just before midnight, one of them made the mistake of creating a silhouette against their portable light source. Deho fired. Another alien fell. The team panicked, shutting off all their lights and scrambling for new positions. In the chaos, Deho fired twice more. 2 more bodies hit the ground. Corvin and 1 remaining team member retreated at a full run. They crashed through the forest, abandoning stealth for speed. Deho could have pursued them, but he had made his point. He let them go. The next morning, Corvin stood before Commander Vexter and delivered his report. His voice was shaking. "This human is not like the others. He does not fight like prey. He fights like a predator. He knows this terrain better than we know our own ships. He is patient. He is invisible. And he is winning." Vexter slammed his fist on the table. 70,000 soldiers, and they were being terrorized by 1 human. It was impossible. It was humiliating. It was unacceptable. But in the mountains, Deho cleaned his rifle and prepared for the next night. He had received a new message from Bora. She had found something important about the alien supply routes. He studied the map she had sent him and smiled. Tomorrow, he would teach the aliens another lesson about underestimating humans. The news spread across the world through underground networks and encrypted channels. In Paris, resistance fighters heard about the mountain ghost, who was killing aliens with single shots from impossible distances. In Brazil, soldiers trapped behind enemy lines took courage from stories of 1 man holding back an army. In Japan, a general studying the invasion patterns noticed that the aliens around Seoul moved with fear, always checking the high ground, never staying in one place too long. The story of Deho had become bigger than the man himself. People called him different names: the ghost, the mountain spirit, the one-shot hunter. They did not know his real name or what he looked like, but they knew what he represented: hope, proof that the aliens could bleed, could die, could be beaten. In his mountain hideout, Deho listened to these stories on a smuggled radio and felt uncomfortable. He was not a hero. He was just a soldier doing his job. But Bara had explained why the stories mattered. People need to believe we can win, she told him during one of their rare voice communications. You have given them that belief. Do not take it away from them. Other snipers had begun using his tactics. A Russian marksman in Vladivostok killed 15 alien officers in 1 week. An Australian soldier in Sydney held an entire alien battalion at bay for 3 days. A Canadian sniper eliminated an alien general from 2.5 kilometers away. HFY War had become a template, and humans everywhere were adapting it to their own terrain. But HFY's greatest achievement came on the 37th day of the invasion. The Zara had intercepted alien communications about a major operation. The aliens were planning to secure Incheon port to bring in heavy equipment and reinforcements. They would move an entire battalion through the area in a coordinated operation. It was the kind of target HFY could not ignore. The problem was that he could not do it alone. The port was too large, with too many approaches. He would need help. Baar arranged a meeting with local resistance fighters. HFY was reluctant. He worked alone. It was safer that way. But this opportunity was too important to miss. He met them in an abandoned factory outside the city. There were 12 fighters, a mix of former soldiers and civilians who had taken up arms. Among them was a woman named Ji Woo, who caught his attention immediately. She carried a compound bow and had a quiver of custom arrows on her back. When the others noticed his interest, they explained. Ji Woo had been an Olympic archer before the invasion. Now she used her skills to kill aliens silently. A bow? HFY said, raising an eyebrow. Against plasma weapons? Ji Woo smiled. I have killed 23 aliens with this bow. How many have you killed with that rifle? 207. The room went silent. The fighters stared at him with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Ji Woo's smile faded, replaced by respect. Then I will learn from the best. They planned the operation carefully. The alien battalion would move through Incheon in 3 columns. HFY would take the high ground overlooking the main road. Ji Woo and 3 other fighters would position themselves in the buildings along the route. The remaining fighters would set up explosive traps on the side streets. When the aliens entered the kill zone, they would hit them from every direction. The operation required perfect timing. HFY would fire the first shot, taking out the lead commander. That would be the signal for everyone else to attack. They would have maybe 90 seconds before the aliens organized a response. In that time, they had to cause maximum damage and then disappear. The alien battalion entered Incheon at dawn. They moved with confidence, their weapons ready but not expecting serious resistance. They had learned to fear the mountains, but the city was different. The city was their territory now. HFY watched them through his scope from the roof of a half-destroyed office building. He identified the commander immediately, a tall alien with elaborate armor walking in the center of the formation. The range was 900 meters. An easy shot. He squeezed the trigger. The commander fell. Immediately, chaos erupted. The explosives detonated on the side streets, and the alien columns tried to scatter but ran into narrow alleys where Ji Woo and her team were waiting. Arrows struck from windows and rooftops. More aliens fell. The battalion tried to return fire, but they could not find targets. The resistance fighters attacked and vanished like smoke. HFY fired methodically. Every shot killed an alien who was trying to organize a response. Officers, communication specialists, heavy weapons operators. Each death pushed the aliens deeper into panic. They had numerical superiority and better weapons, but they were fighting in an environment they did not understand against an enemy they could not see. After 90 seconds, HFY fired a flare. It was the signal to retreat. The resistance fighters melted away into the city, using predetermined escape routes. HFY climbed down from his position and headed back to the mountains. Behind him, the alien battalion was shattered. Over 300 aliens dead or wounded. Human casualties. Zero. Commander Vexter received the report and felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Not for himself, but for the invasion itself. His superiors in the Galactic Assembly had promised him an easy conquest. They had said humans were primitive and disorganized. They had lied, or they had been wrong. Either way, the invasion was failing. He made a decision that would haunt him. He ordered the bombardment of civilian areas. If the humans wanted to hide among their population, then the population would become a target. He would make them understand the price of resistance. The bombs fell on residential neighborhoods. Schools and hospitals exploded. Thousands of civilians died in minutes. The world watched in horror as the aliens revealed their cruelty. Deho was in his mountain cave when he heard the news. His hand shook as he listened to the casualty reports. His aunt and 2 cousins had been in one of the bombed areas. They were gone. So many people, innocent people, murdered to punish him for fighting back. He sat in the darkness for a long time. Then he stood up, checked his rifle, and made a decision. The aliens wanted to make this personal. They had succeeded. Now they would learn what a human could do when pushed too far. The bombardment of civilian areas changed everything. Before, the world had been divided, with some nations still trying diplomacy while others fought. Now, humanity united with a single purpose. The aliens had shown they would kill anyone, anywhere. There was no safety in surrender. There was only survival through victory. Biora worked without sleep at the command center. She had been promoted to lead analyst after her work helping Deho had proven so valuable. Now she coordinated with intelligence agencies from every nation, pooling information and resources. The Global Military Command had one objective: find a way to strike at the alien leadership directly. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A captured alien soldier, wounded and abandoned by his unit, agreed to talk in exchange for medical treatment. He revealed that Commander Vexter rarely left his flagship in orbit. The ship was massive, well-defended, and considered untouchable by human weapons. But it had one vulnerability. It received supply shipments every 3 days from a base in the mountains east of Seoul. Biora brought this information to her superiors, and within hours a plan began forming. It was audacious and probably suicidal, but it was the only chance they had. A strike team would infiltrate the alien supply base, hijack a transport ship, and use it to board the flagship. Once aboard, they would find Vexter and eliminate him. The mission needed specialists. The best of the best. Bazura insisted that Deho lead the team. Her superiors argued that he was too valuable as a sniper, but she stood her ground. My brother has killed more aliens than anyone on Earth. He knows how they think. He knows how they move. If anyone can do this, he can. Deho received the message while planning another night operation. He read it 3 times, not believing what was being asked. They wanted him to leave the mountains, his home ground where he had the advantage, and fly into space to attack a warship. It was insane, but he thought about his aunt and cousins. He thought about the thousands of civilians murdered in the bombardment. He thought about Ji Woo and the other resistance fighters who were risking everything to defend their homes. He sent back a one-word reply: yes. The team assembled at a hidden military base. There were 6 of them total. Deho was the sniper and team leader. Tae-young was a demolitions expert who smiled too much and made jokes about death. Haijin was a combat medic who had saved over 50 wounded soldiers during the early days of the invasion. The other 3 were Special Forces soldiers, trained for impossible missions. They studied the alien base for 2 days through drone surveillance. It was built into a mountain valley, protected by automated defenses and patrolled by hundreds of alien soldiers. A direct assault would fail. They needed stealth and precision. Ji-woo appeared at the base on the night before the mission. She had heard about the plan and demanded to be included. "You will need someone who can kill silently," she said. "Your guns are loud. My bow is not." Daeho tried to refuse, but she would not listen. Eventually, he agreed. The team became 7. They infiltrated the base at midnight, moving through the mountain terrain that Daeho knew better than the aliens ever could. Ji-woo eliminated 2 sentries with arrows before they could raise an alarm. Taeyang disabled the automated defenses with carefully placed charges that created malfunctions instead of explosions. Haijin treated a knife wound that one soldier received from a close encounter with an alien patrol. Inside the base, they found the supply transports, massive ships designed to carry equipment between the surface and orbit. Taeyang studied the controls and announced he could fly it. "How sure are you?" Daeho asked. Taeyang grinned. 70% sure. Maybe 60. They boarded the transport and sealed the hatches. Alarms began blaring across the base as the aliens realized something was wrong. Taeyang activated the engines, and the ship lurched into the air. Plasma bolts struck the hull, but the shields held. They climbed toward space, leaving the base in chaos behind them. The flight to the flagship took 20 minutes. During that time, they prepared their equipment and reviewed the plan. Once aboard, they would have to move fast. The flagship held thousands of alien soldiers. They were 7 humans with limited ammunition and no backup. The flagship's docking bay accepted their transport without question. The supply ship was expected, and the aliens had no reason to suspect it had been hijacked. The team disembarked wearing stolen alien armor that barely fit their human frames. They moved through the corridors, following the map that Baura had created from intercepted schematics. Twice they encountered alien patrols. Twice Ji-woo's arrows struck before the aliens could raise an alarm. They climbed through maintenance shafts and crawled through ventilation systems. Haijin treated burns when Taeyang accidentally touched an alien power conduit. They kept moving. The command deck was located at the top of the ship. It was protected by heavy security, but the aliens were watching for external threats, not for enemies already aboard. Daeho studied the area through a ventilation grate. He could see Vexter standing in the observation room, watching a holographic display of Earth. The alien commander was planning another bombardment. Tokyo was highlighted on the map. "I need a clear shot," Daeho whispered. Taeyan planted charges on the observation room's side entrance. When they detonated, the explosion would create chaos. In that chaos, Daeho would have maybe 3 seconds to take the shot before security flooded the area. Taeyang counted down with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. The charges exploded. Aliens shouted in confusion. Daeho kicked out the ventilation grate, raised his rifle, and aimed through the reinforced glass of the observation room. Vexter turned toward the explosion, presenting a perfect profile. The modified armor-piercing round shattered the glass and struck the alien commander in the center of his torso. Vexter fell, his blood spreading across the pristine floor of his command deck. "Run!" Daeho shouted. The team sprinted back toward the docking bay as alarms screamed throughout the ship. They fought running battles through corridors, leaving alien bodies behind them. Haijin took a plasma burn to her shoulder, but kept moving. They reached the transport and sealed themselves inside. Taeyang fired the engines at maximum power. The ship tore out of the docking bay, ripping through the hangar doors. Alien fighters launched in pursuit. But the transport was faster and more maneuverable than it should have been, with Taeyang pushing it beyond its design limits. They plunged toward Earth's atmosphere, the hull glowing red with heat. Behind them, the alien flagship was in chaos. Without Vexter, the command structure had collapsed. Orders contradicted each other. Ships flew in random patterns. The transport crashed in the ocean off the coast of Bizon. All 7 team members survived. The death of Commander Vexter sent shockwaves through the alien invasion force. Without their leader, the rigid command structure that had made them so effective became their weakness. Officers argued about who should take command. Orders were delayed or contradicted. Supply lines broke down. Discipline crumbled. Humanity struck while the aliens were in disarray. Coordinated attacks erupted across the globe. Russian forces retook Moscow. Chinese troops pushed the aliens out of Beijing. American soldiers liberated New York. The aliens, so confident just weeks ago, began a fighting retreat toward their landing zones. In Seoul. Daeho stood on the same mountain ridge where he had watched the invasion begin. Through his scope, he saw alien ships lifting off from the city, carrying soldiers fleeing Earth. They left behind their dead, their equipment, and their pride. The occupation of Seoul had lasted 53 days. It was over. The Galactic Assembly's ruling council convened an emergency session on their home world. Thousands of light years from Earth, they watched recordings of the invasion's failure with growing horror. 70,000 soldiers, defeated by a primitive species that barely had space travel. The footage of Daeho's campaign was particularly disturbing. One human, armed with nothing but a simple rifle and knowledge of his terrain, had killed hundreds of their soldiers and crippled an entire invasion force. The council members have viewed recordings of humans fighting in cities, mountains, jungles, and deserts. They saw creativity, adaptability, and a level of stubborn determination that none of their species possessed. They saw humans turning simple tools into weapons, using their environment as an ally, and refusing to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. An elder council member, a being who had lived for 3 centuries and witnessed countless wars, spoke with a trembling voice. These humans are apex predators. They have evolved on a death world where everything tries to kill them, and they have learned to kill back. We have made a terrible mistake. The council voted unanimously. Earth would be designated a protected development world. No species in the Galactic Assembly would be permitted to interfere with humanity's natural evolution. Any attempt to invade, colonize, or subjugate Earth would be met with severe sanctions. The humans had earned their freedom through blood and defiance. The alien retreat was complete within a week. They left behind technology that would advance human science by decades. They also left behind thousands of dead, buried in mass graves by humans who wanted to forget the invasion as quickly as possible. But the war had changed humanity forever. The world had united against a common enemy and discovered that unity made them stronger. Daeho returned to Seoul as a hero. His name and face were broadcast across every news channel. People wanted to meet him, to thank him, to celebrate him. He hated it. He was not comfortable with attention. He was a soldier, not a celebrity. All he wanted was to go home and try to forget the faces of the aliens he had killed. Baora understood his struggle. She had watched him through the entire war, reading his brief messages, hearing the exhaustion in his voice during their rare conversations. She arranged for him to receive his commendations in a private ceremony, away from cameras and crowds. The president of Korea gave him the nation's highest military honor, and Daeho accepted it with a simple nod. Ji-woo found him later that day, sitting alone in a park near the old training grounds. She sat beside him without speaking. They watched the sunset together. 2 warriors who had survived impossible odds and now had to learn how to live in peace. Does it get easier? Daeho asked. The memories? Ji-woo was quiet for a moment. No, she said finally. But you learn to carry them. And you do not have to carry them alone. They began meeting regularly after that. 2 soldiers helping each other adjust to a world without war. Jiwoo was teaching archery to young people who wanted to learn. Daeho agreed to help train the next generation of military snipers. If the aliens ever returned, humanity would be ready. Bauer received her own recognition for the intelligence work that had been crucial to the war effort. She was offered a position in the new Global Defense Initiative, an organization formed to coordinate Earth's defenses against future alien threats. She accepted and threw herself into the work with the same dedication she had shown during the war. The military wanted to study Daeho's tactics to understand how one sniper had accomplished so much. He agreed to work with them, but only on one condition. They had to promise that his methods would be used for defense only, never for aggression. "We won because we were fighting for our homes," he explained. "That is not something you can teach. That is something you have to feel." 3 months after the invasion ended, Daeho visited the memorial that had been built for those killed in the bombardment. Thousands of names were carved into black stone, including his aunt and cousins. He placed flowers at the base of the memorial and stood in silence. Around him, other survivors did the same, each carrying their own grief. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, approached him shyly. Her mother tried to pull her back, but the girl was determined. "Are you the mountain ghost?" she asked. Daeho knelt to her level. "I am just a soldier," he said gently. "My teacher says you saved us. She says you taught the aliens that humans do not give up." Daeho felt a weight settle in his chest. He had never wanted to be a symbol. He just wanted to protect his home. But looking at this child, seeing the hope in her eyes, he understood what Boera had tried to tell him. The story mattered more than the man. "Your teacher is right about one thing," he said. "Humans do not give up. Remember that. And when you grow up, make sure the galaxy never forgets it either." The girl smiled and ran back to her mother. Daeho stood and looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Assembly was watching Earth, wondering what kind of species they had encountered. They had learned that humans were dangerous when threatened, creative under pressure, and absolutely unbreakable in defense of their homes. The invasion had cost humanity dearly. Entire cities were damaged. Hundreds of thousands were dead. The world would spend years rebuilding. But humanity had also gained something precious, the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe, and that when the stars themselves turned hostile, humans could fight back and win. Daeho walked away from the memorial, his rifle slung over his shoulder. He was not the mountain ghost anymore. He was just Daeho again, a sniper who had done his duty and survived. The war was over. The rebuilding had begun. And Earth, the small blue planet that the aliens had thought would be an easy conquest, had announced itself to the galaxy as a world that would never, ever surrender.